Okay, and now we're just going to have that 15-second delay that I warned you about as Facebook connects us over to our mighty mystery fam. I'm so excited to chat with everybody today. Everyone's so excited to chat with you.
Yay.
All right. And we are live. Welcome, mighty mystery friends, family, and fans. I am your on-air host, Sarah DeVello, and I am thrilled to be hosting Edwin Hill here to talk to us today about his brand new book, Watch Her. Edwin, welcome to Mighty Mysteries. Tell us about your book.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Well, this is my third book. This is a third in a series. So the series follows a woman named Hester Thursby. She's a librarian. She works at Widener Library at Harvard. And on the side, she finds missing people. In this book, this book takes place at a fictional for-profit college called Prescott University that's based in Jamaica Plain. For anyone who doesn't know, a for-profit university is a school that has a board of directors and is charged with delivering a profit to that board. And she attends a party with her friend, Detective Angela White, and they are called away from the party to investigate a break-in at a local house, the owner of the school's house. And when they get there, Angela, who's the detective, begins to suspect that there actually wasn't a break-in, and she wonders why. And that sets off the whole mystery.
Ooh, well, I was captivated from the first page. So I loved Hester, and I want to get into all of the good details in your book. But first, I just want to welcome everyone watching with us on Facebook. Welcome, everybody. It's so good to have you here. Gail is saying, hi, Sarah. Hi, Edwin. Hi, Gail. Happy New Year. Welcome back. Gail's a top community member. Kimberly saying she can't wait to read, watch her. Kimberly, welcome. So good to have you here.
Hi, Kimberly.
Yay. So Edwin, tell us, what's it like to write a female protagonist, and what do you think the secret is to writing a great female protagonist as a male author?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. As fiction writers, our job is to inhabit the lives of other people, right? And so these books, Hester is the main character in the book, but they're actually told from multiple points of view. So she winds up only taking up about, she winds up being about, in all of the books, I try to make her about 40% of the narrative. And then there are usually three other point of view characters, and they take up the remaining 60% split between them. And so there'll be a mix of men, a mix of women, a mix of all different experiences. And so with every character, I approach it in the exact same way. I mean, if I'm writing about someone who has had a different job than I have, or is a different age than I am, I try to inhabit that life authentically. And then I look for beta readers to tell me where I got it wrong. So with Hester, I have a bunch of beta readers who will always read the book before it even goes to my publisher, just to tell me where. And my question to them always is, where does this feel inauthentic, and what can I do to make it feel more authentic? I mean, Hester has a lot of different things that are the same between the two of us. Hester loves horror movies. I love horror movies. Hester's a slob. I'm a slob. Hester loves dogs. I love dogs. But there are lots of things that are different besides her gender. She's 12 years younger than I am. She's a librarian. I'm not a librarian. She has a child. I don't have a child. So there are lots of things that I actually have to make sure are authentic about her as a character, not just her gender.
Ooh, interesting. So how many beta readers do you have? And what is some of the feedback where they said, this is not something a woman would ever do or say, or, oh my God, how did you know how it feels to be in here?
I usually have 4 or 5 beta readers per book. I do try to match them based on who the POV characters are. So if I have a lesbian, I try to have a lesbian read it. If I have a person of color, I try to have a person of color read it. All sorts of things. They're usually really, really, really tiny things. For instance, one of the characters in this book is Angela White, who is Black.
Yes.
And so the woman who I had read for that in particular just gave me a lot of very small tips of things that I got wrong. For instance, Angela was wearing a headscarf. So she directed me to this website where she said you can just learn about the different knots that people use for headscarves and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay. that's interesting. I'm trying to think of something. There were a couple, they were actually like such minor details, but such important details that she pointed out when we were going through the manuscript. Oh, I remember. There was a scene where Hester just said something. I was like attempting to make Hester say something that was obtuse. And that would be annoying to Angela. And
Uh-huh.
and the reader said, you know what, it's too obtuse, take it out. And I said, okay, I will.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Yeah. And so one thing I just want to, I mean, there's so much to say here. I want to welcome Janine. I want to welcome Karen, also a top community member. Karen, welcome back. Welcome everybody. So if you've been here before, you know how it works. This is your time to ask Edwin anything. This is your time to have insider access to our featured author. So you can ask Edwin about his characters, about his writing process, about his books, about anything you want to. Just go ahead and type the comments in the comment box, your comments or questions right there in the comments. I'll get them right over to Edwin. I'm monitoring on 2 screens here, which is stretching my technical abilities to the max, but I got it. And so while I know it always takes me just one tiny second to think of my questions. So while you're thinking of yours, I have to say, Edwin, you got an amazing review from Kirkus. And as the New York Times said, they are reliably curmudgeonly and cantankerous, but they raved about your book, saying that you mastered complex characterization and a masterly mystery. Make this a superior read. Wow. I mean, that is a rave review if ever I heard one. What do you think your secret is to being masterly, to being a superior read?
I have no idea how to answer that. I will talk a little bit about like my process.
Tell us.
It's sort of like, if you imagine writing a mystery as putting together a jigsaw puzzle, where you not only don't know, it's sort of like you're putting together a jigsaw puzzle where you don't even, you don't know what the picture looks like, but you also don't know like what the colors on the individual pieces are. So you're trying to figure out how things match up. And the drafting process is sort of figuring out what all the pieces of the mystery are. And then once you sort of move beyond that into the revision process, it's taking all of those pieces and finally putting them together into a whole. And so I think it's approaching the story with a really open mind, but a really logical mind at the same time. Like opening yourself up. Like I go into every mystery with an idea of where I'm going to go. I sometimes will have a couple page outline that I follow, but I also open myself up to the story going places where I wasn't expecting it to be, or new characters popping up. So with this series, I've followed the same format with each book. I've had 4 protagonists, or 4 POV characters. There's only one protagonist, that's Hester. I've had 4 POV characters, but the POV characters, I don't necessarily start knowing who the 4 POV characters are. I like to try and figure out as I'm drafting, especially in that first draft, I like to pay attention to which characters sort of bubble up and tell me, I want some time in the sun. And so I give them some time in the sun and see where the story is going to go.
And do you ever find that the organic following of the plot leads you down a dark dead end that you got to back it on up out of there? What do you do about that?
Oh yeah, I do. So I go through this process when I first start. I do a series of free writes. I try to do free writes for 40 discouraging days in a row as I'm trying to figure out where the plot's going to go. And I always know when I'm getting to the end of the free writing process because I've like really written myself into a hole. So at that point, I usually back all the way up to the beginning. The beginning is usually, I've written 3. I've actually written 5 books. But I haven't written 15 books, but this is work for the 5. I back up all the way to the beginning and I kind of start over. And what happens is that usually the first quarter, the first third of the book is well set at that point, or better set than the end. And so then when I get into that second draft, if I made it through the first 25% before it going off the rails, maybe in that second draft, I'll make it through the first 50% before it goes off the rails. And then I kind of force myself to keep writing to see where it goes. And I usually wind up doing that maybe 3 or 4 times. And by the 4th time, I'll have hit the end of the book.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for giving us that glimpse and into your writing. It's so fascinating to know that about your process. and also gives me as a writer hope because I find myself stuck all the time. And so it's good to know that it is possible to get through,
Oh my gosh.
through them.
I mean, I feel like writing, I tell this to my students. I teach at Emerson College.
Yeah.
Writing is just a series of problem solving exercises. And so you just have to look at what you're
Ooh.
doing. You have to look at it on the micro level because every day you accomplish like this much. But you do, if you're doing it every day, you do accomplish this much. You want to look at it at the micro level, but then you want to like pull out and look at it on the macro level every now and then and make sure that you're, sort of going in the right direction.
Oh, I love that. I love that quote. Writing is just a series of problem solving exercises. I never thought of it like that. And I love that perspective. Thank you. Catherine, one of our top community members, Catherine, welcome
Hi,
back.
Catherine.
Happy New Year's. She's saying, Edwin, what was the initial idea that began this novel particularly and the series? So again, book 3 and the Hester Thursby series. Tell us again, what was the initial idea that began this novel and your series?
So this is the current book, the Watcher. Interesting. I mean, this is another tip: never throw anything away. So when I wrote my first book, which is this one, it had a subplot about a for-profit college that was sort of run by a family, and the for-profit college was going under. And so when I went to sell that book, we cut that subplot. And so that wound up being, it actually was quite a bit of the manuscript. And so I had that on the side, and we went forward with that first book without that subplot. But when I went to start my third book, I thought, let's see if I can turn that into something. And so that was, that's a long way of saying don't ever throw anything away. But the for-profit colleges they sort of fascinate me because I worked in college publishing for many, many years. And so we would sell books and materials to the for-profit arena. And it's an interesting group of schools. They're very, very good for-profit schools. But about 5 years ago, there was one called the Corinthian system. It was a nationwide system of colleges. And it went in the space of about 6 weeks, it went completely bust. And it left about, I'm making this number. In fact, I'm going to say a smaller number. I'll just say a lot. It left a lot of students sort of in the lurch. They didn't have their degrees. They had a lot of debt. And so I was following that story, and I thought to myself, I think that's a really interesting idea, to look at a business that is on the decline, how people behave when something is on the decline, how they behave when they're starting to get a little bit desperate. So I pulled that out, and I thought, okay, that's an interesting thing to look at. And I worked a lot. The school that I feature in the book is not like about to close the way Corinthians was or anything like that, but it was definitely like the impetus to get me into the story. The overall story, like a lot of writers, I worked for a very, very long time on my first book. I wrote another book I went to Emerson for my MFA, and I wrote a manuscript there, and I got an agent right out of my MFA program, and it was a big fancy agent in New York. This was in the early 2000s, and we shopped that book all around, and it didn't sell, and I got very, very discouraged, and I also was completely broke because I had just gone to grad school. So I decided I was going to focus on my career. I got a job at Houghton Mifflin, a local publisher, and I focused on my publishing career for many years. And then two things happened. In the late 2000s, I read Kate Atkinson's Case Histories, which is a mystery, but it's a literary mystery. And it's one of my favorite books. And I finished that book, and I thought to myself, she is doing exactly what I was trying to do with my book that didn't sell. So she did it. I wonder if I can do it. Then at the same time, does anyone, well, no one's going to be able to say anything to me, but
no, they
at
can
the same
comment.
time, the Clark Rockefeller case started happening here in Boston. And for anyone who doesn't remember, Clark Rockefeller was that guy who pretended to be a member of the Rockefeller clan. Of course, he wasn't a member of the Rockefeller clan. And as his story started to unravel, he went on the run with his own daughter. And he was on the run. He was on the lam for like a week. And during that week, it became a big national story. And it turned out that he was a German national. He had been like impersonating different people all around the country, and they linked him to a murder in California. So he's in jail now. So anyway, I saw that story and I thought, that would make such a great story. So I started writing a novel about two grifters. Their names were Sam Blaine and Gabe DePercio. And they were doing sort of what Clark Rockefeller did. They would move around the country. They'd infiltrate different people's lives. They'd take advantage of them. I worked on that not in any serious way. It was just sort of like I was writing on the side. I worked on that until 2010, so about 2 years. In fact, I will tell you this. I wrote a single scene. I wrote like 2 pages, and it was about Sam Blaine, the grifter, and he was in a bar on Beacon Street. He was leaving town because he'd done something to someone. I didn't have any idea what those things were. And so I wrote it and I liked it and I thought it was great. And then I would like close my computer. And then every now and then I would open up my computer and I'd be like, move a word around, change a sentence. And I'd be like, this is great. And then I'd close my computer. But
that's
what
a productive day in my
it
book,
was so
Edwin.
great. It was so great. In 2010, what really changed everything for me was, it was such a little thing, but it was a big thing for me. I got a new job. I left Houghton Mifflin, I went to Macmillan, and I negotiated a month off between my 2 jobs. And so I'd always heard about NaNoWriMo. I didn't do it during the actual NaNoWriMo month, but I got the month of October off. NaNoWriMo is normally during November.
Yeah.
I got the month off and I thought, well, you know what? I've always heard about this. I've heard that you sit down, you write every day for a month, and at the end you have a really terrible draft. And so I thought I can do that. And so I sat down every day for the month of October. It was 10, it was more than 10 years ago now. I sat down, and at the end of the month of October, 2010, I had a terrible, terrible first draft. And during that first draft, I came up with Hester as the protagonist for this story. I hadn't added her before then. I set the story in Somerville. Hester and her partner, Morgan, live in Somerville. And I came up with a lot of the features of the book. It took me another 3 years to actually finish the draft. But it was so important to sit down and go through that exercise of writing every day.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you for this glimpse behind the curtain. This is so interesting and so helpful. So I am loving this conversation. Thank you. We have another question from Gail this time. She's saying, will Edwin be resurrecting his virtual Noir at the Bar series? It was terrific. Edwin, what is this? Tell us.
Yes, I hosted I hosted virtual Noir at the Bar in the spring, along with another local author, Daniel Ford. This is his book right here. And I think we will bring that up. I got a little bit burned out on Zoom, I have to admit. And but I think we'll try and do that maybe once a month starting in January of this month. I've heard from a lot of people that they really enjoyed it.
Okay, for the rest of us, tell us what it is.
Well, Noir at the Bar traditionally is sort of like a poetry slam with crime. So you'd go to a bar and you'd usually have 4 or 5 people who would read from their work. I really like it when people read things that are experimental or that they're working on. But we did virtual Noir at the Bar, New England, where we would have 4 or 5 authors from around New England come out and read from their crime novels. I usually tried to have, if we had 5 authors, I would try to have 4 be from New England, and then I'd invite 1 person from elsewhere, since we are, we benefit from being able to do that right now. When this time is over, we're hoping to start up a Noir at the Bar live, and maybe have a virtual one every now and then too.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Gail, thank you for the reminder. I do need to get that going.
That is perfect. And Edwin, I think we're getting just a tiny bit of interference with your microphone, maybe brushing against the collar of your shirt. If you could just turn your earphone up a tiny, I think that will get, perfect. Thank you. Yay. And Catherine is saying that the for-profit colleges leaving all those students in the lurch was very sad. And I actually hadn't heard about that. So that seems incredibly sad to be leaving those people.
It was a challenge for those students. It was very, very challenging. And I think a lot of the challenge continued. So
yeah. Another question. Gail saying Noir at the Bar really helped get us through the early days of the pandemic. Thank you so much, Edwin. Oh,
thank you.
yay.
Wow. That is really nice. That made me feel really good. Thank you.
That is awesome. And I love learning about this series. Gail's a top community member. She always has the best questions. She's so it's so good to see you here and have you here, Gail. Catherine, also a top community member, always has amazing questions, saying, Edwin, what would you like readers to take from Watch Her without any spoilers, please?
Oh, goodness. Well, I would like, there are a couple things that I'm really proud of with this novel.
Ooh, yeah.
This novel, it's very exciting. It's got a great murder and all that stuff in it, but it's really about, it is a love story for anyone who's read the first two books. Hester has a longtime boyfriend whose name is Morgan. They live in Somerville.
Veterinarian.
Yep. And they share a house, but they don't actually live in the same apartment. So they tend to spend a lot of time in Morgan's apartment. But Hester has her own apartment. And I wrote this as a love story to Morgan. So I hope that at the end of this novel, you feel really good about Hester and Morgan's relationship and sort of the turns that it takes. One of the things that this whole series is about, it's about the families that we create and the families that we have.
Yes.
And one thing I've loved the way it's evolved. Hester and Morgan, they both are a little prickly. They sort of like to say that they don't like other people, but in reality, you'll see throughout the series that they're always opening their home to both humans and animals. And so they're always having, Morgan's a veterinarian for anyone who hasn't read it. So they're always, they sort of collect this group of people as the series goes on. And I liked the people that they added to their, not in a creepy way, in a good way. I liked the characters that they added to their collection this time. And I liked the dogs that they added to their collection as well this time.
And a 6-foot iguana.
And an iguana named Ian.
Yeah, because I was trying to picture myself be as compassionate and loving to that iguana as they were, and I was struggling, Edwin. I'm afraid of scaly creatures. Catherine saying she loves that description. Me too, Catherine. Thank you. She also would like to know, what was your favorite or least favorite or most difficult part of writing this novel? Ooh, Catherine, get into the heart of it.
Sure. For every, I'll say my least favorite part first. My least favorite part is that 40 days where I just do it every day. I mean, those are a drag, I have to say. And you just kind of have to force your way through them. My favorite part of every novel, and it happens at a different time with every novel, there is this moment where it's almost like a switch turns and you don't see it coming, and all of a sudden, all of the pieces just fall into place.
Ooh.
And all of a sudden you start seeing these little connections and you start tightening them. That's when you start working on your themes. Like this book has a theme. This book has a theme of mothers and daughters. There are a lot of mother and daughter relationships. And once I sort of got to the point where I was like, that's one of the things that this book is about. I was able to actually articulate that in the book, and I was able to tighten that part of the novel to make it stronger. So that's my absolute favorite. And ideally, I work on a deadline because my publisher needs the product from me. So ideally you have enough time, you have a lot of time between the switch going on and your manuscript being due to your publisher, so that you can work on that part a lot.
I love that. Yeah. How long did it take you start to finish to write this one?
This one took a little while because I was still working full time at Macmillan at the time, and that job had become it was always very demanding. But once I sort of became a published author and I was the vice president, it became it just became very challenging to balance my work day, my day job, and my side job. And so, but once I wound up leaving Macmillan to pursue writing full time. And once I did that, it was much easier.
Yeah, you're getting thumbs up and support from Facebook on that. Edwin.
Yes,
living the dream, do it. I love this question. Another good one from Catherine. Did you do some research for the novel? Walk us through that. Yeah, because you do there's a lot in there about Jamaica Plain, about the history of for-profit colleges, which I actually had never realized there was a difference. It just didn't ever occur to me whether colleges were for-profit or nonprofit. Animals, I mean, librarians, Harvard. I mean, there's a lot in there, missing persons, police, procedural. Tell us about your research process.
So I would actually, there are a few areas where I did a lot of research or did some research. For-profit colleges, I definitely did a lot of reading up on that. I followed the Corinthian colleges. I just kind of read about different models here and there to see what the schools were like. Again, I worked with a lot of these schools as part of my day job for many years, so that was helpful as well. I went to Widener to meet with a wonderful librarian there who showed me through the library. It's a very historical place if you've never been there. And then she recommended a book about the history of Widener. So I incorporated a lot of that as well.
And for those of us who don't know, Widener is the big library on Harvard's campus?
Oh yeah, it's Widener is the big research. It's actually the largest library in the world.
Wow.
And it was built right after the Titanic sank. There's a little bit of the history in there. It was built by one of the people who died on the Titanic was a guy named Harry Widener, and his mother was very wealthy, and so she built the Widener Library in his name, and so it's called the Harry Widener Library. When you walk into Widener, it's beautiful. It's all done up in marble, and you walk straight toward this room. It's called Harry's. I think it's sorry, I'm going to get all of these names wrong. It's been a little while, but Harry's reading room, and it's basically Harry's private library. And there's a big portrait of him. Anyway, so I learned all of this.
Wait, but he died.
He died. Yes, he died on the Titanic.
But she did this room for him.
Exactly.
Oh.
So, and it's a beautiful building. Police procedural is interesting. I mean, I have watched a ton of Law and Order, so which I know is like sometimes wrong, but it's sometimes right. So this is true for all research. When I write books, I try not to get hung up on research while I'm drafting, but then I'll go back and figure out what I don't know, and I'll try and put that in later. So like when I'm writing police procedure, especially in a draft, what I'll do is I'll just write what I think is right. And I'll write the book based on what I think is right. Then I have a police officer who, his name is Bruce Coffin. He writes a terrific series. Which I can show you his latest book. It's right here.
Oh, yay.
So Bruce Coffin used to be a police officer up in Portland. And so I'll go through with him, and I'll just kind of go through the procedural parts in the book and ask him if I got things right. And again, just like with my beta readers, he'll just kind of direct me here and there to make sure that I'm getting the small details right.
And how do you know Bruce?
Oh gosh, the crime community is both large and very small. We all tend to know each other. He's a good pal.
Oh, yay. I met him last year in the days of yore when people could still gather in person at conferences at Pinebank, New England. And he was just so great. Yeah. And actually, I'm hosting him at the South End Library where I'm on the board in next Tuesday, the 12th.
Oh, that's awesome. Were you at the Pinebank last year?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, I wish we had met.
We must have, there was strangers passing in the night.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's so funny because his name is Coffin. So if your name is Coffin, like what, you kind of have to be a police, a law enforcement officer, or maybe an undertaker. Yeah. And he has this very deep bass voice, and he's so funny. Oh my God, I love Bruce. We've got to get him on here.
He's great.
That's so funny. So he walks you through it and tells you. Okay, cool. Karen, good question. She says she loves how you talk about writing and it is inspiring her. Oh, Karen, I love that. That's so fantastic. So Edwin is not only an incredible writer, he's also a writing teacher. So Edwin, do you feel like like a lot of your students or, people that you meet are inspired by how you talk about writing?
Well, I hope so. I mean, what I'll say about writing is that you have to work on it every day. And it's just like any other job. It can be really frustrating sometimes, and it can be really rewarding at other times. Writing, one of the challenges of writing is oftentimes you're doing it with another job, which can obviously can be challenging.
Yes.
And so people say this all the time, but find the system that works for you. People will tell you write every day. But if you can't write every day, that doesn't mean you can't be a writer.
Yes.
Find a system that works for you. So if you can write every weekend, or if you can write on Saturdays, if you can write an hour for Saturday, that's fine. But just find the system that works for you. And I always say, the other thing that I always say to people is come up with goals, make them extremely achievable, and then try to beat them. So if you can set a goal of writing 200 words a day, which is about 2/3 of a page, that's great. Now try and write 220 words every day, which is just an extra sentence.
I like that.
You know, and so then you've not only have you achieved your goal, you've beaten it, and you're not setting yourself up in a place where you're going to get frustrated or anything like that.
Oh, I love that, because who else can relate to setting these big lofty goals and then feeling crushed when they don't happen? Me.
I think we all do that.
I mean, not me, my alter ego. You know. Oh my gosh. Oh, another great question from Catherine. I'm loving this conversation. She said, when did you know that you wanted to be a writer, and what authors inspire you? Edwin, give us a glimpse behind the curtain.
Oh, sure. Well, way back when I used to, my parents were big readers, and we went to the library every week and got a stack of books. And I loved like the children's mysteries. So I really loved the Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, Three Investigators, those kind of books. The series I really loved was called The Famous Five, which is about it's actually an English series. I don't even know why I was exposed to it, but it's about these 4 kids and a dog who are constantly getting into adventures in the countryside in England. And of course, the best part about them was, there were never any parents around. I don't know how they got away with that. But my favorite thing about the Famous Five is it did not matter what was happening. They could be in absolute peril. They would always stop to have tea, which I really, really appreciated. And they were always having things like treacle tart and ginger beer, which just sounded so wonderful. Anyway, but then when I was maybe 11, my parents used to take us on these month-long family camping trips. We would drive across the country in this yellow Bronco, and I was 11, and I was in that age where you're going from children's books to adult books, and I didn't really know what to read. And so we stopped right outside of Mount Rushmore at a gas station. I'm old enough so that you could still buy books at gas stations. And they bought me a copy of The Seven Dials Mystery by Agatha Christie, which is one of her early books. It's set in a manor house. It has a character named Bundle. I mean, there are lots of parties and stuff like that. And I loved it. I read it maybe in a day or so. I loved everything about it. I loved the language. I loved the puzzle of it. I loved the world that she created. I loved that it was set in the UK or in England. And I finished it and I thought to myself, that is exactly what I want to do with my life. And it took me 35 years to teach myself how to do it, but I did eventually teach myself how to do it. And I always loved crime novels. I love, like Sue Grafton, I think is really great. So the four writers that kind of really, I always sort of think of as my big influences are Kate Atkinson, who I already mentioned. She writes a series, the Jackson Brodie series. Very literary, very character driven. I love Laura Littman, who writes a lot of books set in Baltimore, and I love the settings that she comes up. She also has great characters, but the setting and the way she uses Baltimore as a character in her novels is wonderful. Tana French, who writes a series set in Ireland, the Dublin Murder Squad series. She does great procedurals, but I also love how all of her novels interlock with each other. And then the last one is Louise Penny, who writes a series set in Southern Quebec. And I love that her books are about community. And I really like to bring that idea of community into my novels as well.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And such a wide ranging and diverse list of authors there, Edwin. Karen is saying that's actually one of her next books to read. Catherine is saying she loves it when you really feel the setting. I totally agree. I love both those comments. Thank you, Karen and Catherine. Absolutely. This is fantastic. Oh, Karen's saying this is great writing advice about setting sustainable goals. Thank you, Edwin. Yes, Edwin, thank you for that. Speaking of a diverse range of books, one thing that really struck me as I was reading this book is how wonderfully diverse and inclusive it is. So you have a female protagonist in a non-marital long-term partnership. You have a Black female gay lead protagonist, also Angela White, and her partner. Both of whom are therapists, and I love that detail of how they both sort of like. Sorry, she's married to a therapist whose ex is a therapist, and so they sort of overanalyze each other. I loved the dynamic there. Hester and Morgan have a child, but it's not a biological child. I loved that there were couples and actually a throuple of all kinds. We have gay, we have straight, we have Black, we have white, we have Asian, we have, long-term partnerships, non-marriages, marriages. Edwin, you wrote a book that reflects the world out there as we see it, at least as I see it, living in a diverse area. And I really appreciated that about your book, about how you took the time and care to really make sure that everyone could see themselves on the page, because not everybody does that. And I think that everybody deserves to see themselves on the page, on the screen, on the stage, as full-bodied characters, complex characters. And I really thought you did that so well and so sensitively.
Thank you.
So I just really want to honor that. And the other thing, so the three things that I took from this book is, number one, Edwin loves dogs because every character has a dog, even the evil ones. I'm not saying who they are, but even the baddies. And I was like, oh, Edwin, if you kill a dog, I'm gonna throw this book out the window, and then I'm gonna come to your house and I'm gonna beat you over the head with it.
There's no better way to kill a career than to kill a dog.
Oh my God, if you killed a dog, I would kill I would be so upset. But even the bad guys have dogs and are very good to them, are very kind to them, and benefit from the relationship with the dog. So as a huge dog lover who's very active in the dog rescue community and the proud dog mother of a rescue dog, that I loved that. And the way that you portray the dogs and their complexity and their intelligence and their unequivocal, their unconditional love and their ability. You love animals, and I can tell that. And you really love dogs. Number two, you love Boston. And you have a deep respect for Boston and Roslindale and Jamaica Plain, and for the history of the city and Harvard and the history of these buildings, and research and librarians, which I do too. I'm a huge library nerd, which is why I'm on the board of my little local library. Mm-hmm. And number three, you have a commitment to, again, making sure that everybody sees themselves on the page. What else do you wish that people would take from this book? What did I miss?
Actually, you summed that up pretty well. I do love dogs. No, but the dog thing, I do like to bring a lot of dogs into the story, and I like to use animals to sort of illuminate characters. There's a dog in this book that had appeared in the last book for the first time called George, and George is one of those characters who appeared out of nowhere for me, the author, and then he has just a tiny little role in The Missing Ones, which is this book. He appears toward the end of that book.
Oh, and when that blurred a little bit, can you just hold it up one more time? Sorry. It just takes a minute to focus. There we go. Yes, perfect. Thank you.
George appears very late in The Missing Ones, and he has just a very small part, but he helped illuminate Morgan in a way that I didn't even understand, that even as the author, I didn't realize how powerful it was. And if there's one thing that I've heard from more readers, it's that they love George and they love this scene with George. And so I brought George into this third book as well. And he has a very small role in this book. He now lives with Angela White. And he helps illuminate Angela at the very end of the book in a way that I was very proud of. But I do, I try to write books that represent the world that we live in.
Yes.
I try to do justice to the characters the best that I can. And I try to make them as fully realized as possible. Angela White is actually a good example of a character who, so she appeared in the first book in Little Comfort in the last third of the book. And she just appeared out of necessity because there was a murder and we needed a detective to investigate it. And for a while, she didn't even have a name. And then I started to sort of fill her out and add little things about her here and there. And then all of a sudden I gave her a couple different scenes, and those scenes grew. And she wound up having maybe 4 or 5 scenes in that book. Again, readers really liked her. I would talk to people and they'd be like, we love that Angela White. My dad was like,
she's very likable.
Yeah. And so then I was working on my second book and I was like, oh, I'll weave her into this one. So I gave her a bigger but not huge role in the second book. And in this book, I really wanted to give her a due, and I wanted her to be a fully realized person. I wanted to make sure that her marriage had its good sides, its bad sides. And so, I scruffed her up a little bit. I wanted to make sure that she brought secrets to the table as well. Everyone in my books has a secret, and no one always, and this is true of life, right? No one ever tells the whole truth about anything. And
Edwin.
That's what we learn about. That's what we learn about all of these characters. And I wanted to make sure that Angela had her own secret that she brought to the table as well.
Angela does have a secret.
Yes, she does.
A secret. One of the things I really loved about Angela was the dynamic between her and her wife and her ex-partner, again, both of whom are therapists. The other thing I think that was that I really appreciated is, Edwin, you're funny. You write funny well. A lot of this book takes place on April 1st, April Fool's Day. And I actually laughed out loud at the scene between Angela and her wife, when her wife and their kid play a little practical joke on Angela. And I first felt my blood pressure skyrocket, as Angela does, and then deflate when I realized it was a joke. And then I was howling with laughter because I was like, oh my God, I would feel the exact same way. So you're really funny, and have a very dry, witty sense of humor. And the other thing I wanted to say I forgot was that again, the theme of family is not always who you're born to, who your blood is, it's who you choose. And that really came through so well and so beautifully.
Thank you.
Gail saying Louise Penny is so nice in person. Gail, that's so good to know. I have never met her, so that's fantastic.
She is a real sweetheart.
Catherine would like to know, what books are on your TBR pile? Yes, we need to know about your TBR pile. Is it the next ton of French? What's going on over there?
I am going to read the next ton of French. I'm actually reading I have a couple books that I'm doing blurbs for right now. So I'm working through those.
Any you can tell us about?
No, not right now. Oh, I can tell you about this one. This is by, what did I do with it? Shoot. Well, if I can find it, I will tell you. But I will say, you know who's a really great author? I'm reading this book right now. Oop, everything's falling. And this is called by Joanna Schaffhausen, All the Best Lies.
Yes. And she has basset hounds, and she loves those bassets.
Exactly.
And I love bassets.
That's the third book in that series, which is a terrific series about it's a police procedural about a woman who was kidnapped when she was young. And then now it's many years later, and she's still sort of working through that grief. This one that I just held up was really interesting because it deals with the DNA, sort of the DNA thing that's happening, where you send your DNA in and then you find out that someone was a murderer. Yeah. So and then she has a fourth one coming out at the end of the month. I can't remember the title, but with that series, I would start all the way at the beginning with a book called The Vanishing Season.
Oh, cool. Okay, good. So anything else you want to share?
Oh my gosh, I can't think of anything right now, but if I think of anything, I will let you know. I just came off a huge reading project that lasted all year last year. And it was, so I'm just getting back into sort of personal reading, and I have to sort of reacquaint myself with what's out there.
Yeah, exactly. Charles saying, terrific interview and congratulations, Edwin. Charles, thank you so much for joining us and for the kind words.
Thank you.
Marilyn, hi, welcome. I'm just scrolling through. I want to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Ooh, another good one from Catherine. I love all of your covers. Did you have input into the cover design and titles? Edwin, hold up your book's cover. Well, you can also see it right behind me. Tell us the story of this cover and the story of this title, and then your other two mysteries as well.
Sure. It's an interesting process because your publisher, in traditional publishing, the cover is like everything, so they control it. The cover is like what they sell the book with. But what my publisher does, which is really, really nice, is that at the beginning of the process, he says, send me images that inspire you for this book. So for this book, this book takes place from March 31st to April, I think it ends on April 2nd.
Yeah.
And so anyone who lives in Boston knows that that's a cold, wet time of the year. And so I was thinking, this is a very wet book. And so I sent him pictures of sort of like this. I sent pictures of where water is streaming off of glass and things like that. And a lot of the action takes place around Jamaica Pond. So I wanted to incorporate water as well.
Yes.
And then so I send those off, and then he sends me, they do what they do. There are like a million conversations that you as the author are not part of as they review this. And then he sent it to me. And I will tell you, this is like the things that you get so crazy as a writer. But I was like, this woman right here.
Yeah.
I was like, she had this long flowing hair. And I was like, Hester Thursby would never have long flowing hair. She wears her hair in a ponytail. And so I was like, can you change that? And I saw this like very short, terse email to the cover designer, give her a ponytail.
Eek. Oh my gosh. So wait, so this was the first draft of the cover minus the flowing hair. This is it.
I never see the first draft. So then they send it to me and they say, do you like this or not? And I either say yes or no. And I had a few little comments on this one, but I loved the direction that it was going in. And I thought it was very compelling. I really like, if you look at this, you can, I don't know if you can see it, but they sort of smeared the letters.
Yes.
So it looks like they're dripping, which is really, really fun.
That is fun. Yeah, then, you can see it right over the N over her head.
Yeah. So then this is my second book, The Missing Ones. And that one takes place, each of them takes place in a different season. So the current one takes place in spring, the missing one takes place in fall, and Little Comfort takes place in winter. And so for The Missing Ones, I wanted it takes place on an island off the coast of Maine. So I wanted it to feel very desolate and just very creepy. So I thought they did a really great job with that. And then of course, the first one is in winter, and I just wanted it to look like winter. I love this blood on the
yeah, that's gorgeous.
Yep. It's just, anyway, so so they do a really good job. If I really, 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 really hate it, they'll listen to my objection. But in general, I think they do a great job with covers.
Has it happened that you hated one?
No, not yet.
Okay, good. Sharon is saying she loves this new cover. Catherine is saying it's great. The cover shows her accurately. Amen. We need to see Hester with a ponytail, not some flowing girl hair. She says covers unrelated to the book are so disappointing. Catherine, I totally agree. I mean, I'll say it. I judge a book by its cover, and I can't stop, and I won't stop. In the words of the great poet Miley Cyrus, can't stop, won't stop. But it's so true. And it's the worst when the cover doesn't align and you're like, that is not how she looks. Like that is, there's no, stream, there's no waterfall. Like what? It's just like, you're upset about it. So I totally agree. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anybody's questions. Julie, welcome. Marion, welcome. Just making sure I'm not missing anybody's questions. David, welcome. Hi, everybody. Well, thank you all for these wonderful, wonderful questions. If you have any last questions with Edwin, I see we've already gone over our time, but this has been a lively conversation and we couldn't stop the organic flow of this. So Edwin, I just want to thank you for coming on A Mighty Blaze.
Thanks so much for having me.
As you know, we have, or as you may know, we have a very special partnership with bookshop.org, which supports independent bookstores. And tragically, one independent bookstore a week has gone out of business since the pandemic descended. So if we want to have independent bookstores when we come out of this, and we want to have places to browse and smell the sweet scent of fresh pages and fresh ink and have a cup of coffee and browse the shelves, which is a pleasure that I know I want to have, we've got to support indies. So you can buy Edwin's book today through bookshop.org and support indies and get the latest Hester Thursby story. So this is a win-win-win-win-win situation. My partner in crime is going to post the link in the comments and I'll pin it to the top. So scoop up this delicious book today. Kimberly saying, in the words of the great poet Miley Cyrus, ha, ha, ha. Kimberly, I love it. Gail saying, thank you both. Catherine saying, great interview, Sarah and Edwin. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Catherine. You are both such treasured members of our community here. I love having you both. I love your questions. Kimberly saying, terrific interview. Thank you, Edwin and Sarah. Karen saying, thank you, great interview. Thank you guys all for being here, each and every one of you. Thank you for your thoughtful, mind invigorating questions that I have learned so much, and I have so enjoyed this. So thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next week right here on A Mighty Blaze. Edwin, congratulations on your brand new book, and we can't wait to see what happens to Hester next.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for coming. It was great to chat with you.
Yay. Okay, everybody, have a great day.